And I'll point out to an earlier point that Steve made, that in fact it was the imposition of term limits and the equitable redistricting of the 1990s that led to the explosion of not only Latino and Latino legislators, but of Asian American and female legislators of all ethnicities as well. But we do have a problem when you have an assembly speaker or minority leader who takes that job after a year or two in office. You have a problem when a committee chair or ranking member gets that appointment before they know how to find a men's or women's room in the city capitol.
That's right.
And I think a couple of years ago, then Speaker Nunez and Governor Schwarzenegger put together a proposal that would have not lengthened term limits, but would have allowed the members to serve their entire term of service in one house or the other. Instead of 6 years in the Assembly or 8 years in the Senate, 12 years in either one. The legislators, toward Mike's earlier point, the legislators got greedy.
Well, yeah, there were other problems with that.
But no, I'm saying had they put that on the ballot as a clean 12-year fix, I think it would have passed. The members couldn't resist giving themselves an extra several years.
That's right. You know, some people argue that the reason we never got to this emergency stage in the days of Pete Wilson and Willie Brown, or the days of Jess Unruh and Pat Brown, is that these guys were there. They had the clout where they could twist some arms and knock some heads and get things done. You can't do that with term limits. You have nothing to work with. You don't have enough political capital.
I think that's a valid point. But if you look at what has the electorate done over, say, since Prop 13. Prop 13 was in part a constraint on the legislature, 2/3 vote. There were other propositions that either told the legislature don't do this or spend money on this or how to allocate or whatever. So everything has been done to sort of weaken the legislature. On the other hand, the electorate looks at the governor and says, and if you look at the candidates for governor, they all say, I'm going to give you this and I'm going to do that and so on, as if they could somehow unilaterally do these things without the legislature. If you have a weak legislature, you have a weak governor, because the governor can't get things done through that legislature. So if you're looking for things to reform in the state, given the fact that the electorate doesn't seem to want the legislature to have a lot of power, then you have to say, what can we do to strengthen the hand of the governor? There have been some efforts at that, for example, to give the governor some authority to make mid-year budget cuts. We've only done that in a very limited way. I would go further. I would say, for example, if there's no budget on July 1 in a given fiscal year, the May revise is the budget until some of the budget is enacted. Now, you could say, a lot of people will shrink in horror at that thought, but some version of that where the governor ultimately, who is the one elected state official that everybody knows, they think of him as the CEO and so on, that's the person who ultimately has been sort of targeted to have the authority, but we don't give him the authority.
Stephen?
I would argue the same. I mean, the same as you hit it right. The state legislature has had authority taken away. These are our democratically elected representatives by hook or by crook. These are our representatives. We put them in there. We know how we put them in there. We punched the chat through most of the time. But the term limits are incredibly restrictive. I won't deny that they helped spur minority representation. Without them, we would not have had a Speaker Bustamante or a Rivera-Gosa or a Wesson or a Nunez. But that said, they are so unstable. Even the term limit relaxation we supported. At least let them serve in one house. At least let them get their let them wet their whistle now and learn it. From what I understand, it takes about 2 years to truly learn the rules of your body, and then you're talking about 6-year term limit in the assembly. 2 years to learn the job, maybe 2 years of being effective. In the last 2 years, you're laying duck and running for something else.
But knowing you have to run for something does make you more responsive to at least what you view as your constituents.
But it makes you more responsive to the short term, put something on my resume, so I have something to run on it. So therefore, it limits the long-term vision. Even if you're for no term limits or even just some sort of period of say 12 to 13 years, you could say that's a long enough period. Even stabilizing the houses, it would
And that, my friends, is going to have to be a wrap. Thank you all very much. Great discussion. The hour flew by, at least for me it did. And we really appreciate your being here and your insights. And thanks to all of you at home for watching. For all of us here at LA City U 35, so long for now.